Thank you for attending our Hangout today. I'm Brianna Davis, and I'm here with International Student Loan. And today we're going to be talking about study abroad loans. Now, often if you've watched our Hangouts in the past, usually we do talk directly to international students, so non-U.S. citizens coming to the U.S. But today we're going to mix that up a bit. We're going to talk directly to U.S. citizens who are going to be studying abroad. So more than likely you are enrolled in your U.S. school and you're going to be spending a semester or a year abroad. So we're going to be talking directly to you. Now, if you are not a study abroad student, that's fine. Don't feel like you have to go anywhere. You can still send in any questions to us through the chat feature if you are an international student, and we will go ahead and answer those questions for you in the end. Also, you can use the hashtag Financial Aid Talk, and this also applies to those who actually are study abroad students. So send in those questions, go ahead and use the hashtag Financial Aid Talk, and we will get those questions answered for you in the end. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So, study abroad loans. You might be worried that since you're studying abroad, you don't have any options whenever it comes to loans because you'll be outside the U.S., but that's really not the case. You actually have two different options. You have federal loans, which is of course through the government, and then you have private loans, which is through a separate entity such as a bank. So we're going to talk about both of those options today. We're going to just touch briefly on federal, and then we're going to dive more into private loans because really at International Student Loan we specialize in private loans. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with federal loans. And first I want to start by saying that if you have not ever completed the FAFSA, or if you don't even know what it is, you're going to want to look into that. You most definitely want to complete the FAFSA. And what it is it's the free application for federal student aid. By completing it, it's going to let you know what type of aid you have available to you. Now, it's going to, of course, tell you what types of loans you have available to you in your situation, but it's also going to tell you what types of scholarships or grants you might be eligible for. Now, today we're, of course, only going to be talking about loans, but the FAFSA, just to throw that out there, it lets you know more than just loans. It lets you know about scholarships as well. So complete that FAFSA. You'll want to keep in mind the deadlines for that. The deadline is June 30th, and then there's also going to be some state and school deadlines. So you'll want to double check on what the state deadline is as well as what the school deadline is whenever you're going to complete that FAFSA. All right, so next, who qualifies? So U.S. citizens are able to complete the FAFSA and see what aid is available. There might be a few stipulations you'll want to keep in mind, such as having a social security number, and then as well as qualifying non-U.S. citizens. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is a qualifying non-U.S. citizen? And if you go to fafsa.ed.gov, you'll be able to find out more information as to if you're a qualifying non-U.S. citizen or not. And then you'll also be able to check out those other few stipulations that U.S. citizens might have. So you can get more information there at that site on the federal regulations. Okay, so there's a few different types of federal loans available that you might be eligible for. So I'm going to just briefly cover what those are. That way you can know what you might be able to receive. The first one is a direct subsidized loan. Now for this one, it's only available to undergraduate students, and you have to be able to show financial need. The next one, we have direct unsubsidized. This one, there's sort of a wider pool that's available for this loan. You can be a graduate student, an undergraduate student, and then the great thing is you don't have to show financial needs. So like I said, it opens the pool to a wider variety of people. Next, we have the PLUS loan. If your parents have been so generous to say that they want to help you out with funding your education, this is more than likely going to be the loan that they utilize, the PLUS loan. And then next we have the Perkins. It's going to be a little bit narrower pool. You have to be able to show high financial need in order to receive the Perkins loan. So those are just a few different types that you will want to be aware of. Now next, looking at benefits. There's a lot of benefits to being able to receive a federal loan. Before you even look at private loans, you will want to see what federal loans you have available to you. So let's look at some of the benefits. First of all, you're going to be able to get a low fixed rate, which is great because that means less you have to pay back later on. Also, it's going to be income-based repayment more often than not. So what you have to repay can be parallel to what your actual income is. So it's a little bit more flexible when it comes to that. And then cancellation options. You might be really excited about knowing that there are cancellation options with federal loans, but it's only going to be in a few instances, such as if you have been a teacher in a low-income area for so many years, or if you've done special service positions, things like that. So there are special instances. Not everyone has a cancellation option, unfortunately, but it is an option for some. And then deferment options. If you perhaps aren't able to find a job quickly after you graduate, things like that, it's a temporary postponement of paying back that loan. And in some instances, depending on the loan, the U.S. government may actually pay the interest for you. So it's a pretty great option. So first, before you check out private, you'll want to check out federal loans. Once again, you can do that by going to this site. Let's go ahead and look at private loans, because sometimes, as we all know, family help and personal savings and even federal loans, it's just not enough. So you have to find something else. And that's when private loans come in handy. They're great for filling in the rest of the gap, so the rest of the aid that you need to find to pay for your education. Now, one of the great things about private loans is there's not going to be a deadline. It's sort of a rolling process. Now, keep in mind, though, it can take up to 2 to 6 weeks for the initial approval. So if you need your funds immediately, like tomorrow, that's not going to happen, even though there's not a deadline. It's going to take, about 2 to 6 weeks for that initial approval. So keep that in mind. But there's not a deadline, which is great. Who is eligible? Now, today, during this hangout, we're just talking about study abroad loans. So U.S. citizens or residents who are studying at an eligible school. Now, keep in mind that's for study abroad loans. We also, with international student loan, there's an option for international students, so non-U.S. citizens, to see what loans are available to you as well. But for the sake of study abroad loans, you have to be a U.S. citizen, a resident studying at an eligible school, and you actually do not need a U.S. cosigner if you're a U.S. citizen. Now, while this might be great, keep in mind that sometimes it's still beneficial to have that U.S. cosigner. They can help ensure that you actually get that loan, and they can help ensure that you have the best interest rate possible. So just because you don't need it doesn't mean that you shouldn't find one. And then a few of the benefits, as we've already discussed, there's the rolling deadline, but sometimes you just need more. As we touched upon, sometimes it's just you don't have the aid that you need with your personal funds and with the federal funds. So private loans are a great way to give you that extra aid that you need. And then also, perhaps you've missed the FAFSA deadline, perhaps you just don't want to bother with it at all, then doing the private loan is going to be a good option. Now, if you go to internationalstudentloan.com/study_abroad/, you can read more on study abroad loans, and we have an easy loan tool finder, so you can see what lenders are available to you as a U.S. citizen studying abroad. So I recommend, if you are wanting to utilize private loans, you'll want to use that tool. It's going to narrow down what lenders will work with you in your situation. So you can then go in and compare the different lenders, read their terms and conditions, and then find the best one for you. So, all right, let's go ahead, now that you know a little bit about federal and private loans, let's get to some of your questions. I know we've had a few come in already. If you have any more, please feel free to send those in. We'll answer as many questions as possible. You can either send them in through the chat feature, or of course, once again, through the hashtag #FinancialAidTalk. All right, so let's answer Esther's question. Can I get a loan from the beginning of a new semester at a university in Australia? So really, it's going to depend on the time frame that you actually apply for the loan. Once again, whenever you do a private loan, it's going to take 2 to 6 weeks for the initial approval. So you'll want to make sure that the time frame is on par with what you're needing to meet the deadline. And then for a university in Australia, if you're studying abroad as a U.S. citizen, and you're enrolled in an eligible school, then yes, that's a definite possibility. You'll want to go and see, go to this website, see what lenders are actually available for you at your school. You'll have to be at an eligible school. So you can go there and see if doing a private loan is actually a possibility for you for your journey to Australia. Okay. Next, what are the procedures to get a loan in the USA? It sounds like it appears that you are an international student, so a non-U.S. citizen coming to the U.S. And as I mentioned before, we have lenders who work with non-U.S. citizens who are studying inside the U.S. But to see what lenders are available to you, you would have to go and use the Loan Finder tool, and you would have to answer just a few questions, such as if you're a U.S. citizen, if you have a cosigner, your school, things of that nature. And it's going to give you a list of lenders that will work with you as an international student at your school. Not every lender will work with every school, and they don't always work with international students. So that tool is a great way to narrow down what lenders will work for you. So you'll want to go and complete that tool. And let's look at our next question. Can I get a loan for a transfer? So it sounds like you might be attending one school and you're going to be transferring to a different school, and you're wondering if you can still get a loan at the new school. And it's going to depend on your school, if you have an eligible school or not, also on your situation. So once again, if you are an international student, I recommend going on to the Loan Finder tool, putting in the information and completing everything you need, and then you will see if your new school is an eligible school and if you have any lenders who are willing to work with you as an international student at that school. All right, Matthew, what is the best loan to get at the lowest interest rate to make sure you can afford everything you need to study abroad and not eat ramen noodles the whole time? Matt, that is a great question. Although ramen noodles are great, I can see how those can get pretty old after a while. Eating ramen noodles all the time is not fun. But really the answer is you're going to have to compare the different loans and see which lender can offer you the best rate. Your rate is going to vary not just by lender, but also I'm not sure if you're a U.S. individual or not, but it's going to depend on if the credit that's attached to the application. So perhaps whether that's yours or your co-signers, the interest rate can vary depending on that as well. So you're really going to have to see what lenders are available to you, and then compare what they're able to offer you in order to see which one is the best, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. So once again, whether you are a U.S. citizen going abroad, or whether you are a non-U.S. citizen coming to the U.S., you can use the Loan Finder tool, see what lenders it gives you, and then compare their terms to find the best one for you so you're not stuck with eating ramen all year. All right. So we have from Adel. Hi, I went to study abroad, but I still don't know where, between Australia, Canada, UK, Sweden, Germany, Finland. That's a lot of choices. That's good. Keeping open to your options. I just want to ask, any country that has a good education system, where can I get a study abroad loan without having a resident sponsor like in the US? Well, unfortunately, if you are not a US citizen, then we actually would not have a loan program available to you if you will not be studying inside the US. So non-U.S. citizens studying outside the U.S., we unfortunately do not have a loan program. We would only have one if you're a non-U.S. citizen studying inside the U.S., or if you're a U.S. citizen going abroad, either to be a study abroad student or directly enrolled. So you might want to reconsider the U.S. if you do need a loan. If not, then any of those other places would be great, and you might just want to consider perhaps a scholarship or something of that nature. See what they have along those lines available to you. So it looks like those are all the questions that we have today. If you have any other questions that arise, please once again feel free to use the hashtag FinancialAidTalk at any time. We will answer your questions that you have as soon as possible for you. That way you can find the aid that you need. That way you can either go on your study abroad trip, or you can become an international student inside the U.S., whichever one you'd like. Everyone more often than not needs financial aid in order to make their trip abroad come true. So we're happy to help you with that. Hopefully you have gained a little bit more insight into study abroad loans today. And if not, once again, let us know your questions and we'll be happy to help in the future. Thank you for attending.